All right, I have every single champion of the men's divisions in the UFC, and I've come up with their absolute nightmare matchup for them, who I think has the highest possibility to take their belt. Some of these guys might be low ranked, maybe unranked. Actually, I don't think there's any unranked fighters in the video, but you know, it's not just going off the rankings. I'm not going to do, oh, this guy's number 1 on the rankings, this guy's 2, and this guy's 3. No, it's who I personally think has the best chance to take that fighter's belt. So we're going to start with the lightest weight class, victim weight. Alejandro Pantoja is the current champion of the division. I don't know why the J looks like an I in that font, but whatever. And I'm going to be honest, I'm not very high on Pantoja. I've never thought he was that good. I think he's really overrated by a lot of people. A lot of people think he's like some super elite flyweight, one of the best to ever do it. And sure, he's got a good resume, but he's got a lot of holes in his game, and I think he's very beatable. And I think this guy already proved that he's very beatable, and that is Steve Erceg. I think Steve Erceg beat Alejandro Pantoja. I think he beat Pantoja in their fight on damage. I think he should have won round 5 off of damage. And even if you think Alejandro Pantoja won that fight, he won it because he engaged in the wrestling in the end of round 5. So either he threw the fight away or he won it. Pantoja was on his way to losing that fight, and then Erceg just had bad fight IQ and engaged in the grappling when he was winning on the feet. Yeah, I think he's a really skilled, clean boxer. I think he's very good on the feet. Pantoja's there to be hit. He doesn't have the best striking in the world, best striking defense. He really just relies off his scrambles. He's got good scrambles, which is why I have Tatsuro Taira down there. I think Tatsuro Taira is one of the few guys in this division who could possibly out-scramble Pantoja. So I have him as the number 1 honorable mention right behind Steve Erceg. Brandon Moreno, kind of self-explanatory. They already fought. They fought a few times. Pantoja's won every time. I think he's 3-0 on Moreno, but their last fight was the closest. Very close fight, but Pantoja won. And Manel Cap, if he can just show up to a fight, we would know a lot more. But I mean, this guy hasn't beaten really anyone at the top of the division, but he's got a lot of potential, and I didn't know who else to throw up there. So Manel Cap, he's got a lot of potential, but he's got to show up and prove a little bit more. You look at the rankings, you got Royval, Moreno, Albazi. I don't think Albazi's going to beat him. Royval doesn't have the grappling to beat him. Kaikara France, maybe. Tatsuro Taira I have on there. Mokaev, just not too high on him. Perez, no. Pretty sure Pantoja already beat him. Could be wrong. Manel Cap, Steve Erceg. Nicolau's not going to beat him. And then obviously outside the top 10, I mean, I don't see anybody there that has a chance. Moving on to Bantamweight. Sean O'Malley is the champion of Bantamweight, in case you've been living under a rock. And I'm going to be honest, I don't think a lot of people beat Sean O'Malley. I think his nightmare matchup, I wouldn't even pick him to win this fight, but it is his next opponent in all likelihood. I do have Merab Dvalishvili as his nightmare matchup. I think to beat Sean O'Malley, you have to be a dominant wrestler. You have to have a dominant wrestling style like Merab. I don't think anyone's going to beat Sean O'Malley on the feet, and we'll talk about the honorable mentions in a second, because I have a guy that is sticking out like a sore thumb, I'm sure. But I don't think anyone's going to beat him in the striking. I think you've got to be a dominant wrestler, and that is exactly what Merab is. And it's just going to be, can he get Sean O'Malley down? We haven't seen anyone really hold Sean O'Malley down or, you know, beat him up on the ground, stuff like that. So it's going to be interesting to see how Merab does. I think Sean O'Malley's going to chin him personally, but I think Merab has the best chance to take the belt from Sean O'Malley. Corey Sandhagen is one of the few guys that can match the length and the reach of Sean O'Malley in this division. Very long striker, explosiveness. And recently he's been able to incorporate the grappling into his game, which I think is a big improvement. And Sean O'Malley has to worry about the striking a little bit, whereas with Merab, he doesn't really have to fear anything on the feet. I was really debating having Sandhagen above Merab just because of the striking, but I ended up going with Merab just because his wrestling is so dominant and his cardio is very good. Second, I have Petr Yan. Obviously, they already fought. Very close fight. A lot of people thought Petr Yan won that fight. I personally scored it for Sean O'Malley. Rounds 1 and 3 for O'Malley. But Yan, obviously very well-rounded. Good boxer. Can mix in the grappling. Pretty good in the clinch. But I just think the reason Yan's not above Sandhagen, I think O'Malley has improved more than Jan has improved since they last fought. I think Sean O'Malley is levels above where he was when he fought Jan than he is now. So I just think Sean O'Malley would have a little bit of an easier time with Petr Yan if they were to have a rematch. I think he's improved a little bit more than Jan has. And my last honorable mention, I have Kyler Phillips. Now, to be honest, there was really no one else I could throw in here. I mean, he's already beat Marlon Vera, Cejudo, give me a break. Figueiredo, I don't see it. Song Yadong, I don't see it. Aldo, Font, Umar hasn't beaten anyone. Now, if Umar goes out there and beats Sandhagen, then obviously I would throw him in there. But Kyler Phillips, he is a very dynamic striker. I think he is the second best striker in the division. I think he is one of the few people that could potentially match Sean O'Malley on the feet. Very good striker. Obviously, I would pick O'Malley to win the fight, but again, it's just like, who else am I going to throw in here? Am I going to throw in Umar? I mean, I guess I can understand if you throw in Umar, but I just want to see him beat someone ranked. At least Kyler Phillips beat a tough guy to beat in Pedro Munoz. That's a guy a lot of contenders can't get past or they struggle with. Even O'Malley was struggling a little bit in that first round with Munoz. And Kyler Phillips went out there and destroyed him, 30-27, I think. Made it look easy. I haven't seen Umar do that to anybody yet, but I'm going to throw in Kyler Phillips. I really like his striking. Super fast twitch, dangerous guy on the feet. So I'm going to throw him there at third just because I think he deserves a little bit more respect than he's getting. And I know these guys train together, so that's kind of why you see a little bit of similarity in their striking. But I think that would be a really fun fight to see. Moving on to featherweight. Featherweight, we got Ilia Topuria. You can probably tell by the silhouette who this guy is, but I got Max Holloway being Ilia Topuria's nightmare matchup. Ilia Topuria undefeated, very well-rounded. I know a lot of people might only know him as a striker, knocked out Volkanovski, but he's very good on the ground as well. I think on the come-up, he was more of a submission guy, but in the UFC, he's showcased a lot more of his striking, so a lot of people know him more as a striker. But I got Max Holloway, obviously. Don't really need to say anything. Super elite boxer, volume striker, could put a pace on Ilia Topuria, wear him out. I mean, we saw in the Volk fight, Volk was having a lot of success in that fight. And it's just, can Topuria catch Holloway the same way he caught Volk? Are you going to put away Holloway? Unlikely. So I think this would be a really tough matchup for Ilia. I would probably pick Max Holloway, honestly. I think Topuria would have to take him down and submit him. I don't think he would chin Holloway. I really don't. But I think that's a very tough fight for Ilia. First honorable mention, I have Diego Lopez. Diego Lopez is a giant featherweight. He is huge. He is big, strong, power in his hands, and he's super dangerous submission artist. I think he's about to go out there and smoke Brian Ortega this weekend, and I think after that he is very close to a title shot, and I think he would have a really good chance against Ilia Topuria. Again, very powerful, super heavy hands, knockout power, so I think he has the chance to knock out Topuria. And if the fight goes to the ground, he's super dangerous on the mat. It's very dangerous off his back. So if Topuria tries to take him down, he would be in trouble there. I think that would also be a tough matchup for Topuria, but we'll learn a lot more about Diego Lopez after this fight with Brian Ortega. Second, I have Volkanovski. Like I said earlier, Volk was having a lot of success in that first fight. He was really piecing up Topuria in that fight until he got caught. He had a lot of success with that jab. It's just a matter of can Volk not get caught. But at this point, coming off back-to-back brutal KOs, I mean, I don't know if the chin's all there at this point. But if he takes a lot of time off, maybe rests up, chin gets a little better, I think he would have a good chance. I'd probably pick Topuria in that fight still. I don't like it at this point in Volk's career. And then I have Aljamain Sterling. I think a lot of people are sleeping on Aljo. Super dominant wrestler. I mean, he was a huge bantamweight, and he's still a pretty big featherweight. I mean, he is very strong. Just looking at him, you can tell he's a very strong man. When he gets your back, you do not escape. I think this could be dangerous for Topuria, but I think his striking would just be a little too much for Aljo. But then again, Topuria doesn't really have the speed and the footwork that Sean O'Malley has, and that's what it took to catch Aljo. So I don't know. Who knows? But I'd favor Topuria in that fight. But I do think it's interesting to think about. And I think a lot of people aren't talking about Aljo, and he's very underrated. I'm going to give him some respect here and put him as the third honorable mention for Ilia Topuria's nightmare matchups. Moving up the divisions, we got Islam Makhachev. This one was tough, man, because, I mean, let's be honest. Who the fuck is going to beat Islam Makhachev? there's one man that can save us, and it's this man right here, the bully himself, Arman Tsarukyan. I think he's the only man that has a chance against Islam Makhachev at this point, but he's about to be suspended for 9 months unless he does an anti-bullying PSA. Then he's only suspended for 6 months. So it's going to be a while until we see this fight. But, I mean, the first fight was already close, and I think Arman, did he come in on short notice? I can't remember if that was a short notice fight or it was just, you know, he was young. But they already fought once, and it was a very close fight. Both the guys were very young in their career. They've both gotten a lot better, so I think this would be interesting. I would probably pick Islam. If he really did have staff, which I think it came out and was confirmed that he did have staff against Dustin Poirier, then you got to reanalyze that Dustin Poirier fight. I was very harsh on him. So you're really taking Dustin Poirier to round 5. We got to have a talk about Islam, right? But if he had staff and he still went out there and beat Poirier, he was a tough guy to beat, then I'll take it back. I'd probably go Islam to win that fight. I mean, Jesus, dude. Like, who am I going to pick for a nightmare matchup? Islam Makhachev doesn't have a nightmare matchup. I've got Max Holloway down there. Maybe he can out-volume him and outstrike him. I don't know. Charles Oliveira, most dangerous submission guy the UFC's ever seen, so you got to throw him up there. And Gamrot. I mean, fuck me. Like, Gamrot, he's not going to beat Islam Makhachev. This guy can't strike. His only route is wrestling. Is he going to out-wrestle Islam Makhachev? No. Like, whatever. I had to pick somebody, so I threw in Gamrot. I should have just thrown in fucking, let's look at the rankings. You know what? I think Jalen Turner has a better chance to beat Islam than Gamrot does. At least Jalen Turner has knockout power, and he's a long striker. Maybe he could give Islam trouble. So I'm throwing Jalen Turner in there instead of Mateus Gamrot because he's garbage. Gamrot has no chance. But I mean, who the fuck am I gonna put in there? I can't. There's not 4 people that have a chance to beat Islam Makhachev. There's just not. So moving on, we got welterweight, Leon Rocky Edwards. This one was kind of tough, but there's a lot of good people at welterweight. So it's not going to be who you think. It's actually going to be Jack Della Maddalena. Now, I think Shavkat does have a chance, absolutely. But JDM, elite boxer, I think he could find his way in the pocket with Leon Edwards and have a lot of success there. Shavkat, I can't put him there because Leon Edwards is a sniper on the feet, and a guy like Shavkat Rakhmonov who has really poor head movement. It's going to be hard to pick him. Jack Della Maddalena is much more defensively sound in the striking than Shavkat. Now, Shavkat does have the wrestling, but Leon Edwards is a tough guy to get down and hold down. So I think Jack Della Maddalena is the nightmare matchup for Leon Edwards. I think Leon Edwards is super underrated as a champion. I think he's going to be hard to beat, but I think JDM has the best chance. Him and Shavkat are really close. Like I said, Shavkat, dangerous guy, 18 wins, 18 finishes, but the head movement on a sniper like Leon Edwards, I think it's a big issue. I've got Ian Gary as the second honorable mention. A lot of people love to hate on Ian Gary for his actions outside of the cage, but inside of the cage, he is very dangerous. Very young. He's only getting better. Super dangerous kickboxer. Really nice boxing combinations. I think that would be a really fun striking match between him and Leon Edwards. I'd like to see that. And Bilal Muhammad I threw in there because I don't have anyone else to throw in. And I know what you're saying. Oh, Bilal Muhammad, he's got a chance. He's going to go out there and beat Leon Edwards at UFC 304. If Bilal Muhammad beats Leon Edwards, the sport is fake and rigged. Because Bilal Muhammad, if you go back and watch Leon Edwards versus Bilal Muhammad, the first fight before the eye poke, Leon Edwards has so little to fear on the feet with Bilal Muhammad that he was actually aggressive in that fight. When do we ever see aggressive Leon Edwards walking someone down and throwing heat against them? Leon Edwards has absolutely no fear of Bilal Muhammad striking. So I don't see how Bilal Muhammad beats him. He has the takedowns, but I think Leon Edwards is a tough guy to get down and hold down. But I mean, there's no one else you can really throw in there. I mean, he already beat Usman. He already beat Colby. Gilbert Burns at this point, no. Sean Brady, too bad on the feet. Stephen Thompson. I mean, maybe Stephen Thompson, but Stephen Thompson's a tough fight for anybody at this point. Jeff Neal, no. Like, those are the guys I think that have the best chance to beat Leon Edwards. Moving up to middleweight, we got the goofy goober himself, Dricus du Plessis. Somehow became champion of the world. And I know there's a lot of talk. Oh, Dricus du Plessis is actually underrated. No, he's not. Now, if he goes out there and beats Israel Adesanya, then I will change my opinion on him a little bit at least. I'll probably cope and say Adesanya's washed and that he has to beat Sean Strickland again. But I think Adesanya's the nightmare matchup. I mean, I've already made a whole video about this. Dricus du Plessis has not faced an elite counter striker with power in the UFC like Israel Adesanya. Dricus du Plessis striking is interesting to say the least. I think Adesanya gives him trouble on the feet. And again, Adesanya is a tough guy to get down and hold down. And Dricus hasn't really demonstrated elite wrestling in the UFC like people want to believe. He held down Darren Till and submitted him, sure. But Darren Till in that fight was getting up multiple times. And it's Darren Till, the quitter. I know he tossed Robert Whittaker on the ground, but Robert Whittaker is a tiny little bitch boy who you can toss around because he's tiny. So I think this is a tough matchup, especially on the feet. I think Adesanya has a huge advantage. So if he goes out there and chins Adesanya, then I'll say he's underrated. Honorable mention, obviously, Sean Strickland. He arguably beat Dricus. I think he should have beat Dricus on damage. I mean, nothing more to say. They've already fought, and it was a very close fight. You know why he's an honorable mention. Robert Whittaker. Now, I know he already got chinned by Dricus, but, starting to think that might have been a little bit of a fluke. You're telling me that little jab, that little power jab from Dricus was enough to drop Robert Whittaker? Paulo Costa hit him with a spinning wheel kick, and it didn't even drop him, all right? If Rob doesn't get chinned by Dricus, I think he gets out-techniqued all day long by Robert Whittaker. I think he's the much more technical striker, and I think he could easily pick apart Dricus on the feet. Now, again, the wrestling is an issue. Robert Whittaker is a little bitch boy that you can toss around, little tiny bitch boy, so I think that would cause him trouble, which is why he is third on the list. And fourth, I have Nasruddin Imavov, kind of similar to Adesanya, a guy who's really good on the back foot, really powerful striker, and a good counter striker. I think he would have a really good chance to beat Dricus. I think all these guys have real chances to beat Dricus. But as for the number one, I do think it's Israel Adesanya. Now for Alex Pereira and the light heavyweight division, this is another tough one. Like, who am I going to put? Who is going to beat Alex Pereira? Probably the dominant wrestler who Alex Pereira has never fought in his UFC career. Magomed Ankalaev is going to be number one, because Alex Pereira has never faced a heavy pressure wrestler like him. He's not as heavy pressure with the wrestling as other Dagestanis are. He really likes to strike, and he's a really good striker, but he can definitely mix in the grappling, and he would definitely be the best grappler that Pereira has ever fought in the UFC, and I just want to see that matchup. I want to see Pereira fight a wrestler, because this guy's a glory kickboxing champion, obviously super dangerous on the feet, and he's never fought a wrestler. It's just insane to me that this guy is a 2-division champion, and he's never fought a dominant wrestler. So I want to see him versus Ankalaev, and he's going to be the nightmare matchup because Alex Pereira is a kickboxer, and he's never fought a dominant wrestler. This is a close fight, though, I will say. Magomed Ankalaev was getting his legs torn apart by Jan Blachowicz. If Jan Blachowicz is tearing your legs up, Alex Pereira can definitely do the same, but I do think Ankalaev is hard to hit on the feet. I think he's a tough guy to hit. I think Pereira would have trouble chinning him, and I'd probably pick Ankalaev to win this fight. But next I have Yuri Prochazka, who Alex Pereira is fighting this weekend at UFC 303. I did end up picking Yuri Prochazka. Yuri was really walking down Pereira in that first fight. Super heavy pressure, unorthodox striking, tough guy to put out, so I think he could cause a lot of trouble for Pereira, but obviously he's already beaten him once. Next, I have Carlos Ulberg, maybe a guy that can stand and bang with him, super good kickboxer, maybe. And then I have Jamal Hill. Obviously, he already beat Jamal Hill, but again, it's like, who am I going to put up here? I mean, Alexander Rakic just lost to Yuri Prochazka. Nikita Krylov is MIA. Johnny Walker, good one. Khalil Roundtree, Volkan Oezdemir, Anthony Smith. Like, who am I going to put on here? Jamal Hill is a dangerous boxer at least, and he was coming in on pretty short notice, and he was coming off a pretty significant injury, Achilles tear. He didn't give himself a lot of time to recover. A lot of his explosiveness wasn't there, so I think that could be a different fight if they were to do it again. I would still pick Pereira, but it's Jamal Hill, or I'm putting Johnny Walker up there, so I was kind of limited on options here. I think Jamal Hill has the fourth best chance to beat Alex Pereira. And the final division, we have heavyweight. I have the real champion, Tom Aspinall. Obviously, I could just put John Jones up there, but then that's no fun because obviously the nightmare matchup is just going to be Tom Aspinall. Everyone knows it. That's boring. John Jones is going to retire after he beats Stipe, so he's irrelevant in my opinion. So I think the nightmare matchup for the champ, Tom Aspinall, this is another tough one. I think Tom Aspinall is a guy that's going to be very hard to beat. I think Tom Aspinall is going to go down as the heavyweight GOAT, in my personal opinion. So a lot of these guys I don't think have a real chance. But as for nightmare matchup, I went with a guy who is quick on the feet, that can actually match the speed of Tom Aspinall, and has pretty good striking. Ciryl Gane, but Ciryl Gane has a huge hole in his grappling, unless he's been fixated on that, nonstop since he got subbed by John Jones. Then I just see Aspinall taking him down and subbing him, and he could even beat him on the feet. Like, it's not like Ciryl Gane's going to destroy Aspinall on the feet, but he's one of the few guys that's as quick as Tom Aspinall and is as technical on the feet as Tom Aspinall. So I put him up there as the nightmare matchup. I would still pick Tom Aspinall to beat him. Honorable mentions: Curtis Blades, a guy he's about to fight at UFC 304. Another guy who is a decent wrestler and is pretty okay on the feet. But I think Aspinall's too quick for him on the feet, and I think he'd chin Curtis Blades. I think he's going to chin Curtis Blades at UFC 304. John Jones at 3. John Jones is just a little too old at this point. He looked very sloppy on the feet for as little time it was on the feet against Ciryl Gane. And I know he was off for years, a little bit of ring rust, whatever. But I do think Aspinall's quicker than him. I think he's better on the feet. He's just got to avoid the takedowns of John Jones. And I think Aspinall would win that fight at this point in John Jones' career. There's a reason he doesn't want to fight Tom Aspinall. And third, I have Alexander Volkov, obviously coming off a huge win over Sergey Pavlovich. But Aspinall already ran through this guy. But Volkov, he's one of the few technical heavyweights up there with Ciryl Gane, Curtis Blades. Very technical on the feet, really good at using his length. Really good teep kicks, jab, good grappler. So he's very well-rounded. And, I mean, who else is going to beat John Jones? Am I going to throw in Jailton Almeida? I think Jailton Almeida, he's garbage on the feet. His only chance is a takedown, and Jailton Almeida is too light. He walks around too light to pick up and ragdoll a guy like Tom Aspinall, who comes in there at 265 at the heavyweight limit. Jailton Almeida is far under that. I don't think he'd be able to ragdoll Aspinall at all. So I think that would be a very tough fight for Almeida. Tiburo's fat, Spivak's fat. Aspinall already beat him too. Tuivas is fat, Derek Lewis is fat, Rosenstrike's fat, Romanov's fat, Marcus Rogero de Lima's fat. Good leg kicks, but fat. Rodrigo Nascimento's fat. So who else am I going to throw up there? There's no one else to put. Oh, Stipe's old. So there you go. That's everyone in the rankings. Who else am I going to put up there? I mean, there's no one else. I have to throw in Volkov, even though Tom Aspinall already dismantled him and subbed him. But those are my picks for nightmare matchups for every single champion in the UFC. Let me know what you agree and disagree with. Is there any fighter that I didn't mention that you think should have been on the list, whether honorable mention or the actual nightmare matchup itself? But yeah, let me know what you think, and I will see you next time.